You're listening to the Hollywood Drop Podcast. And now here's your host, Candace Cruz.
Welcome to the Hollywood Drop. I'm your host, Candace Cruz, and today we are joined with the one and only Dean Edwards from the Dean Edwards Show on the Digital Podcast Network. We love him, and he's here right now.
He came back once again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Candace. I appreciate coming back. And I'm wearing a bright shirt. I knew you were fuchsia down, so I had to come with my floral and red-white pattern.
We coordinated today.
You got to coordinate.
Always.
Yeah.
I feel like people aren't going to know what show they're listening to because I never do these weird voices until you come sit down.
I'm glad I bring it out of you, girl.
You bring it out. Thank you. I love it. Yeah. Well, we are here today to not only joke around, but to talk about your newest episode that's getting ready to come out with Bill Bellamy.
Oh, yeah.
You did two, not even just one, two.
Yeah, no, we had, let me explain something. Bill Bellamy is a legend in comedy and specifically in the urban comedy world. I mean, a lot of people may not remember, but Bill was actually the first comic on the first episode of Def Comedy Jam when it premiered back in the early 90s.
Dang.
You know, and he has a lot of history, and I wanted to, because he and I have been friends for, for 2 decades since I pretty much first started. He was one of the first. He was one of the first people I actually opened for when I first started. He was on tour, and I think I opened or featured for him.
That's
and
incredible.
And just I knew plugging before he even came. I was like, listen, I said I've had other people, but we got to do two. I said, can you give me two hours of your time so we could at least lock and load and rock out? And it's not that each episode is an hour, but I know I wanted to get in the sandbox and play without any sort of time constraints, and we did. And we went through his history, starting as a student in school to going on to Rutgers University and majoring in economics and marketing, and then winding up his humble beginnings as a stand, where he was the opening act for a lot of musical acts that were coming through his New Jersey area. And then the gestation of the idea of Def Comedy Jam from a talent coordinator by the name of Bob Sumner, who actually was also managing Bill at the time. And then Bill actually, what was great about his story, I won't give all of it away, but he told the story about how one of his classic bits, he thought of it. He couldn't find parking. He had a set to do at Uptown Comedy Club in Harlem, New York, uptown in New York City, and he couldn't find a parking spot, so he just double parked his little hoopty, ran inside, and the owner of the club said, "Hey, Bill, you know what? We have somebody on stage and they're killing. You know what? Maybe just come back next week because I don't think you want to follow him." And Bill had a decision to make. He either says, "Here, I'm going to come back," or "I'm going to have some faith in what I do. And I believe in this. I got this new joke that's going to kill him." And so he says, "Nah, I'm going to stay." But because the crowd is so hyped and so high energy, he can't ease into his set. He has to hit him hard. So he takes his normal closing bit and opens with that. So now he has to make sure this particular new joke works, and it destroys. And that one joke pretty much changed the trajectory of his career, because some important people were in the audience that went on to affect his career and really affect a generation of comedians.
Isn't that crazy that you never know that one person that's there that could change your life?
Yeah, that's I always tell people, always bring your A game, man, because you never, and you hear it and it sounds so cliche, but you never know who's in the audience.
It's so true.
And I'd rather go all out and put everything into it, and someone say, "Yo, Steven Spielberg was in the audience," versus someone saying, "Hey, dog, why didn't you do your thing?" "Man, I'm tired." You don't want to know who's in the audience. And what you mean? Who's in the audience? Well, I mean, I'm just saying, this might be the dude that directed Jaws and created the summer blockbuster. So you always want to be ready.
You never know when it's going to happen.
Never know.
Well, you made an interesting statement earlier, is that one joke helped with the trajectory of the way that comedy went, specifically for Black comedians moving forward. Can you kind of walk me through what the history for Black comedy has been, and what your part was in it, and what Bill Bellamy's part was in it? Because I know you guys touched on that in that episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go way back as far as minstrelsy and way back in the days, 100 plus years ago. But when I'd say there was a comedy revolution in the late 80s, early 90s where and I think a lot of it started with Eddie Murphy made comedy palpable for a younger generation of Black comics and Latino comics because Eddie was young, right?
Yeah.
So then after Eddie, you had like the first wave of Wayans with Keenan Ivory Wayans and Robert Townsend and his Partners in Crime's comedy specials. And I think those all gave rise to Def Comedy Jam. And what Def Comedy Jam did that was so amazing and so revolutionary was Def Comedy Jam said, listen, HBO, if you give us a platform, we're going to combine the energy of the hip hop community and hip hop culture, and we're going to give you these comics that have been out there because people don't realize Bernie Mac was out there for years before Def Comedy Jam occurred. You know, Reggie McFadden had been a name on the comedy scene for years. Bill had been out there for years building a name up for himself in the New York City tri-state area, in Jersey, New York, Connecticut, what have you. But now there's going to be a showcase. You had never seen a woman on national television speaking the way Adele Givens was speaking when she said, "I am such a fucking lady," you know, and so you like my self edit. But she was brash and she was irreverent, you know, and speaking from because and we all knew someone if you were from around the way, you knew somebody that talked and looked like her and had the booty like a Cheryl Underwood did back in, you know, so to see like even thinking about like a Cheryl Underwood started off, Cheryl was like raw, and now she's on CBS daytime, right, on The Real. That you don't just get that by accident. That's because a revolution happened that made people say, "Yo, this woman has a voice and is an important voice, and people should hear her and pay attention to her because she has something to say."
I love it. Yeah. And you guys talked about it because I mean, a lot of people don't know how comics, it's such a small world and how you all know each other. Yeah. How did you guys meet? It was through opening for him? Is that what it was?
And Bill probably does it. I don't think he remembers that particular moment because when you're because at that point, by the time I opened for Bill, he had, I think, been on Def Comedy Jam twice. And so he became a household name in Black communities, and then he became a mainstream name because he was also the host of MTV Jams on MTV, and that was big for him because you know he wound up interviewing Tupac when Tupac first got out of jail. Right. Michael Jackson rarely did interviews. You know, you think about, okay, Michael Jackson, he was interviewed by Oprah and maybe Diane Sawyer and Bill Bellamy. Like he's in that realm. Yeah, he's in the realm of rarefied company.
Right.
And he had that interview. Him sitting down and talking with Eddie Murphy. Him interviewing Janet Jackson when Janet Jackson, I think was off the Velvet Rope maybe album. And yeah, he had that access, and because he had that access, and he was allowed to be himself. That's you know, you gotta give credit that MTV didn't attempt to stifle who he was. They said, "Nah, be your authentic and truest self." And we don't know exactly what's happening in the music industry, but we feel a change because the change comes from, you know, underground rappers like Naughty by Nature and Lords of the Underground that are local heroes in Jersey that suddenly come up with a big record like Hip Hop Hooray and OPP, and they transcend the hip hop arena and wind up in the realm of middle America, where you were listening to Nirvana and then you're also listening to Tretch and Vinny and KG from Naughty by Nature. You know, Salt and Pepper, you know, was real. Salt and Pepper was a popular rap group in the late 80s, but off that album where they had Shoop and I think What a Man, you know, that's what really made the middle America say, "Oh, what is this?" Right. You know, and so you had little teenage kids that were white that were listening to them. You know, he interviewed Dr. Dre. He said Dr. Dre was the first cat he ever saw on house arrest, and had an ankle bracelet. You know, like
the stories he has, I'm sure were epic
because he had that access. You know, and so I was like, nah, there's no way I'm bringing you on and we're just gonna do this all in one episode. I gotta have you for two. And so we had 2 episodes where we covered sort of the recent history of Black comedy, and then we also went into the second episode, I guess we did the trajectory of where his career took him, and the highs and the lows and where he's going now, and that's what I wanted my listening audience to understand, because oftentimes out of sight, out of mind. The beauty of stand up is we're always working. So even if, you're like in the lab, and just because you don't see me doesn't mean that I'm not still out in the grind, still out putting out some product and preparing. Because I remember Bill Cosby, a friend of mine, said to me years ago, he said, you know what, remember when Richard Pryor really started getting hot, Hollywood's always had this weird relationship with black comics, because there was a time when they were like, we were like Highlanders. There can only be one, right? And so they were like, okay, Bill Cosby is hot in the mid to late 70s, so Richard Pryor, you gotta wait. And so then Richard Pryor gets hot, and now Bill's style of comedy cools off. But in the meantime, Bill stayed in the lab, staying funny, getting on stage, but also writing. And so when he gets another opportunity with the Cosby Show, he also is like, oh, you like the Cosby Show? Well, here, I also wrote this book on fatherhood and this book on parenthood. And then people are like, wow, he's a genius. He has all this material because he's remained creative. And that's what we all do. Bill had 2 comedy specials that he produced and came out with in 1 year. I think Crazy Sexy, I forgot the name of it. One was the Ladies Night Out comedy tour, and one was Crazy Sexy Dirty. One was just him, and one was him talking relationships, and because he wanted to show people his variety of styles and perspectives, and that comes from continuously creating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to delve more into the second episode because I really want to get to the meat of that one. But guys, we'll be right back. So stay tuned. We'll be having more with Dean Edwards shortly. Welcome back to the Hollywood Drop. I'm your host, Candace Cruz, and today we have been talking with the one and only Dean Edwards from The Dean Edwards Show on the Digital Podcast Network.
I'm still here.
You're still here. You didn't leave?
No,
I didn't scare you off?
No, you didn't scare nobody.
I didn't scare nobody. Great. Well, we were talking a lot about the epic episode, two-parter. With Bill Bellamy.
Yes.
We touched on the first part, but I really want to delve into the second part because you were talking about Bill's career, and he obviously was working with MTV and that big explosion and the access you were talking about previously. Tell me a little bit more about your conversations within that.
Yeah, and then he wanted to, I think, as all comedians would love, not all, but a good amount of us love to sort of make that transition from stand-up stage to television and film. And Bill was able to do that. He coined the term booty call, and the movie. Did
he really?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he actually he coined the term booty call, which is now just part of the lexicon. And so when they had a movie and they wrote this movie called Booty Call, it was offered to him, but he already had an offer to play in this movie, and so he had to make a choice between being in a movie based on a phrase he created or being in a movie with some strong, serious actors to show that he has some acting chops. He wound up choosing the acting chops, and that movie, it was the movie Love Jones, Love Jones, which went on, which is a classic in black households. And from there, I think he made the right decision, because then that led to him doing other movies, with series. I mean, Any Given Sunday, which is a great movie about playing professional football. You had everybody from Al Pacino to LL Cool J, you know what I'm saying, to Jamie Foxx, pre-winning Oscar Jamie Foxx, but it was still Jamie Foxx nonetheless. and Bill, and he got to show that he's a serious actor in this movie as well. And then moving to the modern era, he has this new film on Madam C.J. Walker, who's one of the world's first African American millionaires, multimillionaires from hair care products, and he said he just finished shooting that with I think Blair Underwood and Academy Award winning actor Octavia Spencer. So he's on with big dogs, and He plays a cat called, I think, Sweets or something. But it was when y'all hear the episode on the Digital Podcast Network, the Dean Edwards Show with Bill Bellamy. That's episode number 2. But it's a great episode because it gets you love hearing an artist's trajectory and hearing the sustenance of such a career, because as you know, the same as I know, in entertainment, you want the marathon, and you're running the marathon. A lot of people sprint and then burn out, but looking at someone like Bill, who's been in his position and found the success that he's had, it reminds you that success is really what you make it, and you continue to find success by continuing to set different goals for yourself and achieving those goals, or coming as close as you can to those goals, so that pushes you on to the next goal.
Yeah, I mean, you were even talking about your own. Like, you have a lot of things that you have been going and doing, and you've got coming up and whatnot too. Yeah, no, I stay on the grind. I'm shooting. By the time this airs, I'll have shot this film called Write It Black. I'm about to work on a project with the producers from Digital Podcast Network, which you'll know about by the time this airs, because it's going to be a hit. I know it is. I never thought I would. When I set out and said to myself, I want to be like Eddie as a kid, I didn't realize I was going to become his vocal stunt double for all things Donkey. But if you whether it's Scared Shrekless, the Halloween special, or if you go to Universal theme parks worldwide, whether in Thailand or go to Universal theme park right up here in Hollywood, if you hear Donkey, you're hearing me. That's you?
That is me.
Oh, well, now every time I go and see Donkey, I'm gonna be like, hey, dude.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of what we do is just learning. I had one of our guests on also recently, voiceover. One of the premier voiceover actors in Hollywood. He said, you have to learn to just say yes. It's almost like when you're in improv class, as a young actor or what have you, they tell you, make sure you learn how to don't deny.
Right.
Never
deny.
I pulled out my phone because I'm looking up his name, because I've had so many guests on that I'm like, geez, I don't want to say the.
That's good though.
Richard Mallows. Richard Mallows, amazing voiceover actor, voiceover artist, and one of the premier voiceover artists in Hollywood. He said to me, nah, you just, even if you don't know what you're doing, just say yes.
You'll figure it out.
Figure it out.
Absolutely.
Because when people know you say yes, they're like, oh, we want to work with them, because they didn't say, nah, that ain't what I do. Nah, you better do it. You want to work.
We always want to work.
You always want to work.
Always want to work.
Keep
but
working.
Before we hop off of here, obviously social media is a huge thing in our industry and has been evolving. What is it what's your take on social media, especially as a comedian or as a performer, as a dad?
Yeah. I think social media has its place. I mean, I don't think it substitutes. I think sometimes people get it twisted and think, oh, well, I can just, be a social media influencer. Yeah, but at what point, when you lose that influence, because things are always evolving, and so you want to find what is your real gift, what is your real talent. I think social media is most effective when you marry your skill set, your talent as whatever creative artist you are, with your social media skills. And so I've had Clayton Thomas on the show who has probably over 500,000 followers by the time this I know he has over close to 1 million followers by the time this airs, because he's mastered the art of he's a great stand-up. He's also a great social media comedian that is always releasing content, always creating these skits and sketches with his wife Tangerine, who is also an amazing actress. And so I've seen the positive come from that. Daphne Springs, who's created this character, the angry girlfriend. The angry side chick, I think it's called. Daphne is a talented stand-up who has toured with Cat Williams, but she also has figured out how to maximize and master social media, and she has a strong following. And I think on the episode I interviewed her, she was telling me how she had a company in Russia reach out to her to help promote a product because she did something with a Russian or something. And so it's so I understand the validity and importance of marrying your social media with whatever your skill and talent is. And I believe you should always adapt. You should always Bruce Lee said, "Be like water, my friend. Be like water." And so it's like always adapt. He said, if you pour water in my hand, it becomes the hand. If you pour water in a cup of a glass, it becomes the glass. Be like water, my friend.
Ooh, I'm going to use that all the time. I'm going to be like water all the time. Well, thank you so much for coming on our show again. We love having you on here. And congratulations on your own show on the Digital Podcast Network. You guys, be sure to go and subscribe to the Dean Edwards Show on the Digital Podcast Network. My name is Candace Cruz. We'll see you guys next time.
Just like Candace.
Oh, yeah.
You've been listening to the Hollywood Drop Podcast. If it's new and fresh in Hollywood, you'll find it right here on the Hollywood Drop.